Hello and welcome to After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the weekly show where Tony Ortega and I go over the week's events in the world of Scientology as reported on Tony's Substack. Hey, Tony, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Chris. Good to be back home.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's get to it. More litigation this week. We are buried in lawsuits, and that is the news in Scientology these days, starting with a report you posted last week. As predicted, Scientology is filing anti-SLAPP in that Bixler lawsuit. What's the story and scene there?
Yeah, they're doing it in a couple different lawsuits. They like to use this method. In the Bixler case, as I mentioned before to you, what's kind of odd is that now that the lawsuit has gotten going again after Danny Masterson's sentencing, Scientology is suddenly asking to strike a large part of a 2020 amended complaint when they know a new one's coming.
Mm.
And now on top of that, they've added anti-SLAPP. And I posted some of the things they're saying. They're basically saying that, when these victims of Danny Masterson sued back in 2019, they were pointing out various people that were harassing them online and saying awful things about them. And Scientology now, 3 years later, is saying those people don't work for us. They have nothing to do with us.
Mm-hmm.
So while that's interesting, I still wonder what the point of it is, because there's a new lawsuit coming that's going to supersede it. And who knows if those allegations will even be in there? I don't know.
Well, exactly.
So Scientology's asked for that stuff to be taken out, and they want attorney's fees. That's the point of the anti-SLAPP.
Right.
So it could get expensive for them. But again, it just seems odd to me that they're attacking this 3-year-old complaint when they know a new one is coming. So I'm not sure exactly how that's all going to go down. But I thought it was interesting to see specifically what they were saying. It should be pulled out because these people are not associated with them. So, for example, Jenny Weidman, that's interesting when they say that, okay, Jenny Weidman said some awful things about them, but she worked for Danny Masterson. She doesn't work for Scientology.
Right. Right. So they're sort of saying, well, look, all these people who happen to be Scientologists badmouth you. That's not our problem. Is sort of the defense.
So, yeah. Kathy Gold is a person who has said she's a Scientologist and got into a kind of a fight with Chrissy Bixler on Twitter, but Scientology said, hey, she has nothing to do with us. She doesn't work with us. So, I mean, that's kind of the nature of this particular lawsuit. It's always going to be a challenge for the Jane Does to prove that the people stalking them, hacking them, poisoning their pets, proving that those people are Scientology. I mean, you tend to think they probably, might be, but that's what's going to be interesting. Of course, they just started the discovery process again now that the lawsuit's gotten going. So, I'm sure there's going to be some interesting things coming out in depositions and that kind of thing. And that's what I'm looking forward to is let's see if we can get some of the subpoenas to see who they're questioning. That'll be fun.
Absolutely. And I'm sure as this rolls out, it will get more and more interesting as we dig into more and more of the details of what Scientology, the Church of Scientology, has been doing against them. And it's very difficult. I'll just say it. I'm sure you can relate as well and say this is true, that, just as a Scientology critic, just because weird stuff happens to you, we all go, well, obviously, it's Scientology, right? But I can't prove the emails I've received, the offers to buy my website, the this, the that. I can't prove that's a church operation. So it really, when you get into the legal details of these kinds of things and evidence, it's like it becomes difficult.
That's why I thought Leah's lawsuit is so remarkable, is that she's got evidence that it's websites that actually say Church of Scientology on the bottom that are smearing her, and that it's these particular operatives for the church that are calling up her employers. There's just no question that it's Scientology. So that's really good. But see, that's why I'm looking forward to the new complaint in the Bixler, because I have a feeling they have some more specific evidence about the harassment. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that is.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll probably use these Scientology filings to, in their updated complaint.
Right.
To sort of, oh, she doesn't work for Scientology. What about this and this and this, right? Kind of
Right.
thing, right?
Right. Right.
Okay. Now, also, this last week, now we have this JD1 lawsuit on hold. What
Yeah,
is this?
this is a shame. So Jane Doe 1 was one of the three women that were the victims in the Danny Masterson trial.
Mhm.
And then she filed a lawsuit about things that happened before the whole Danny Masterson thing. When she says she was a minor, she was assaulted by this Sea Org recruiter, Gavin Potter, and then basically was forced to marry him. And so it's basically a forced marriage lawsuit, really terrible allegations. And they Scientology did what it always does with these. They pull out a contract saying, look, she signed a contract. She's obliged not to sue us in court, but to take any grievance to our own internal version of religious arbitration. And then also what they did is they filed that motion for arbitration, and the earliest date they could get was in May. So then they further moved, okay, put this lawsuit on hold until then. There's no point in doing anything else until we find out how you feel, Judge, about the arbitration thing, because if he agrees with Scientology, then it goes away. So in the meantime, there's no point to do anything else. So on Friday last week, they had a hearing on that, and Jane Doe 1's attorney, Carmen Scott, did her best. We had somebody in the courtroom there letting us know how it went down, saying, look, this is so unfair. This Scientology arbitration is inherently unfair. But it was kind of a pickle for them because Scientology wasn't actually asking the judge to rule on their notion of arbitration and their version of arbitration at that point. They just wanted to stay.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
the judge granted it to February. So they moved up the arbitration hearing anyway. So, but basically they put that lawsuit on ice. And that's definitely something that Jane Doe 1's team did not want to happen. So,
Right.
a minor victory for Scientology. I mean, look, it's already late October, so it's not that long, of a wait, but still, it bodes ill that once again these judges just sort of automatically like, oh, they started an arbitration contract. Oh, and you're a church, I can't look into it. Okay, ay ay ay. So it's a little bit of a bad sign, but again, it's a short time. And it'll give them some time to get ready to argue that, and so February it'll be the showdown over arbitration in that case.
Nice. Something occurred to me to say on this that that I think needs to be said, which is, of course, in my bailiwick of coercive control, and the fact that the law is slowly, very slowly catching up. And California courts actually do recognize coercive control as a thing, as does Hawaii, New Jersey. There's a few states in the U.S. that have laws around this, but it's all in the domestic sphere. None of it's been brought over yet to group, gang, cult activity. And I just am pointing this out as something I really wish, and I want people to know, they should know this needs to happen. And it's only going to happen by getting the judges and educated and the court system educated. And there are people who are working on doing that, people I know, but we need to move a lot faster on that. And I just wanted the general public out there who listen to this to know about this, because it would help. If you're wondering, like, why are the judges continually siding with Scientology on these religious arbitration points, on these other points? It's because they don't know that Scientology is an abusive group. And if we could get some of this, coercive control law directed in their direction, we could see a real sea change, I think, in how Scientology is dealt with by the judges. So I just thought I'd throw that out there as a reminder for everybody. You did a podcast with Alex about this protest coming up.
Yeah, he was a staffer with the London Org about 10 years ago, and he's now decided to start speaking out, and he's got this background in marketing. So he's really good at organizing things, getting the word out. He got a bunch of press already on this protest coming this Friday. He's doing a great job, and he's been really helpful with the bunker. We've had a lot of fun trading some information and helping each other out. So I thought we'd just talk about that. And what I like about what he's doing, I don't always write about protests. I'm not that big on protests, but he's really got, I think, the right idea about it, that he just wants to show these Scientologists that they're cared about, that
Mhm.
people care about what they're going through, that if you leave, there'll be support for you, rather than kind of an angry Xenu centered kind of a demonstration. So I think he's got the right thing going with that. And then the other thing was, he he wanted, first of all, he made sure he got permit for a static protest, so they can just stand there and do the protest. But then he also asked for March, and they agreed to that.
Mm.
And then the other fun thing about it was he had contacted the East Kingston Council, the town council there, and said, "Listen, I want a permit to protest this big Scientology event." And they were like, "What big Scientology event?" And it turns out that Scientology has every right to have that big event on its own property. But according to local ordinances, they're supposed to at least notify the city that this is going on, and they had not done so. And this might cause some issues. I'm still waiting for Alex himself to come out with any information about this. But he's got privacy now because he asked about it before Scientology did.
Mm.
He's now got privacy on that, and there may be some interesting consequences. Let me just say that. I don't want to say more because I know Alex wants to be the one to talk about it publicly, but he's already got his March permit. He's got a static permit. The march will be, I believe, on Friday, and he's getting a lot of press. So I think that it will be the largest demonstration there since the anonymous era.
Mm.
And I think it's a good way to bring up some of the issues that everybody has about Scientology's abuses and that kind of thing. And especially at a time when David Miscavige is returning to England to try to make it look like everything's back to normal,
Yeah.
when clearly, from what we can all see, you can see, Mike Rinder can see in his blog, things are not back to normal right now for Scientology. I think they're struggling more than ever. And David Miscavige is going to do his best to make everyone think that everything's back on track. And so a big demonstration right there in front of these people's faces, that's a pretty good idea, I think. I know not everybody's into that, but I think it's a good idea.
I do too. I support it 100%, especially with the attitude that Alex is bringing to it, because I think he's listened carefully to and looked into, how it's been done right, how it's been done wrong in the past. And by right and wrong, I mean, peacefully versus, a bit more ridiculing, dark humor, sarcastic, we're going to make fun of you people. That's a way to do it, but it's not, I don't think, the effective way to do it if you want to reach them as well as show the public at large that there's something wrong here. And you can accomplish both at the same time without having to be basically being a dick about it, And so I support that effort. I really do. And I think Alex is, even he and I were even talking about the signs and how it wouldn't be, did you see Xenu yesterday? It was, hey, when was the last time you talked to your mom? That these kinds of more more like insightful kind of
Right.
of signage and stuff, and it matters, it really does. So
Yeah.
again, speaking from personal experience from those anonymous protests and seeing, for me as a Sea Org member at the time, signage that worked versus signage that didn't,
Right. Yeah.
that
You
kind
were
of
there.
thing. So cool. And then we have Leah's suit. And reporting on this. Now we have Scientology using the First Amendment as a shield and argument against Leah's lawsuit. And they're basically arguing tit for tat, it seems.
Right.
What do we got?
Well, it was interesting. She filed this back on August 2nd, and I think we were all curious to see how Scientology was going to react. And then she didn't wait around. She amended it. She added to the complaint with new allegations. She filed a motion for an injunction to get Scientology to stop harassing her. She filed for a new judge. I mean, she's been very active, and we've all been waiting and waiting. Okay, but what's Scientology going to say? And so finally, this last week, we got a chance to see what they're going to say. And it's so Scientology. It's like they're basically saying, yes, we called her names, but she called us names first.
Mhm.
And so they've put together all this list of stuff that's Leah supposedly said. But see, right away, I made sure and made a note people understood. They have this quote in there. Leah admitted that in her aftermath show, in the reality show, it really wasn't reality, and she was manipulating people. And they put it in quotes like she said it, but it's not her. It's Marty Rathman claiming she said that in one of his videos, which is just garbage. So that's the kind of thing they're doing. But they're basically saying, sure, we said all these things. We called her a racist. We called her a bigot. And we can prove it's true. That's basically what they're saying. It's pretty incredible. I decided that, and then so they're doing a motion to strike. They're basically saying because these things are protected speech, we want all these things cut out of our lawsuit. And so I decided rather than try to describe it, I just put everything in there. Everything Scientology wants cut from the lawsuit, I posted on Sunday, and I don't know if you saw, but it's a huge amount of material. And I thought it was fun to see those allegations again because Leah's got some great stuff lined up, and that was the point I was also making was that she does have evidence that it's the Church of Scientology harassing her. Very good evidence based on who's writing the letters, who's posting the websites. There's no question that it's Scientology behind this major effort to try to harm her ability to make a living. I think that's what makes it more than just a defamation case. But again, Scientology is just coming back and saying, "Oh yeah, well you called us this, you called us that," and you and I had a little conversation. It's like, well, what does the judge do here? We don't know. I got to say, it's actually kind of interesting to see what is the judge going to think about this kind of tit for tat argument, and how does he handle that? So that's November 28th, I think, is when we'll get some indication of that. So not, like 4 weeks from now. That's pretty quick. And it's going to be really interesting to see how he handles all that.
Big time it is. And this is where the rubber meets the road on legal knowledge too, because this is where 1A really comes in, First Amendment. And it's not like all judges are constitutional attorneys or lawyers or judges, right? And also, I hope, I really do have my fingers crossed that Leah's team has some constitutional, eagles on board, because when 1A comes in, things get really interesting, as we've seen in other much higher profile cases all over CNN and MSNBC right now, right? Like there's a lot of 1A stuff all over the United States right now. And I believe in this case, it's distraction. I think it's just noise being generated to distract from the actual damage Scientology does through its actions against Leah to hurt her career, as you said. And that's the real point of the lawsuit. And hopefully the judge is somebody who gets that and can see through their shenanigans, right? Fingers crossed. But this is where things get interesting with knowledge and experience with the law and who's involved. So we'll see exactly what this judge is about very soon.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's kind of the update this week. There's a lot of legal stuff going on right now in the Scientology world. Have you seen or heard, dare I even ask, any other tidbits regarding this grand jury out in LA or any other updates outside of this stuff?
No, I mean, just what I reported during the second trial that I overheard those attorneys at a sidebar talking about a grand jury, and then the judge asking the DA, is that ongoing? He said yes. And then when I reported that, the judge wasn't very happy with me and gave me a real wrist slap.
Yeah.
But that's all we know is that that first week of the second trial, which was what, late April or something, that the DA confirmed to the judge that this grand jury looking into Scientology is ongoing. Well, he had earlier revealed that it had started in 2018. So that's 5 years. The grand jury has been looking at Danny Masterson and Scientology. And of course, the question you have is, look, Danny's already facing 30 years to life in prison. But what about the people that were protecting him? What about the people that were telling these women they couldn't go to police? What about, some other sort of obstruction of justice type charges? I don't know, maybe another agency. Right. So, yeah, you have to wonder, what is this grand jury looking at and who are they possibly thinking of charging? but that's all we know, and we're lucky we even got that much. I mean, the only reason we know anything about it at all is that at one point the DA wanted to bring in testimony by Marty Singer into the case. And so he said, well, Marty Singer told the grand jury. And we're like, what? Marty Singer did what? So that was, we were very fortunate that they felt they needed to bring that in. So
Right.
we're, otherwise they keep that stuff secret. So I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I wish I did.
Yeah, exactly. And remind us, who's Marty Singer again?
So Marty Singer was Danny Masterson's entertainment lawyer, and he was the one who
Oh,
convinced, along with the Scientology officials, convinced Jane Doe 1 to sign that NDA back in 2004 so
right.
they should keep her mouth shut. And yeah, I mean, I think they wanted Marty Singer to testify about that, because I think they were trying to build a case about how Scientology again was keeping these women from coming forward,
Right.
and they never brought him in, unfortunately.
Mm. Mm. Well, one hopes, fingers crossed, all of that. It's very frustrating watching this go on and on and on like this, but I also understand that building a case and actual evidence versus what we know is a very different thing. It's a
Right,
very different thing.
right.
So one can only hope. All right, well, fair enough. And as I like to ask at this point, any previews of anything?
Yeah, I've been working on a big magazine piece, and hopefully it'll land pretty soon, but it's hard to know
Cool.
for sure. It's tough.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. All right, guys. Well, we're back in the trenches here, and that's what's going on right now. And we'll keep up the good fight and keep our eye on what they're up to and keep reporting to you about it. Thanks very much for coming around and watching us, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.